Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. Ours is a place where dreams take flight, voices are heard, and stories are shared. This is where cultures meet, connections are formed, and ideas are transformed into action. This is your destination for authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations. We're where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover our world of education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our USA Global TV channel and download our USA Global TV app. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. With heartfelt thanks to our executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, music scored by Yifei Tang from Cloud Road Music, creative direction by Paul Garcia, and I'm Al Cini, and I'm very proud to be part of the USA Global TV and Radio family. So join us here at USA Global TV and Radio. Make us your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Thank you for being a part of our global community. Let's inspire together. Hey, everybody. I want you to think a little bit about what happens when it comes to nation building, what happens when the shooting finally stops. Now, most of us here, especially here in the West, are familiar with the difficult process of creating nations, often through civil war and a great deal of strife. Eventually, that period has to come to an end, and the nations that evolve from that, we're talking about the 7 nations that used to be Yugoslavia in the Western Balkans. We're talking about those 7 nations. What happens when the shooting stops? And there we are in the middle of a European community and in a very important part of the world community. What these nations need to become now are partners in economics, not just on the battlefield, but in the marketplace. So we've got a couple of experts we're going to be talking to. Our key Balkan expert, Sabri Agimi, is joining us. And Sabri, maybe we can start with you today. Where do these nations find themselves now with respect to establishing partnerships among themselves and with Europe in general?
Thank you, Alcina. It's good to see you again, and it's such a topic to talk about. And I just got to say something about me. I'm not as an expert, but I'm quite knowledgeable on that region because I was born and grown there, and certainly lived in Europe and seen everything. But then, yes, as we spoke about a few kind of programs before, a couple of programs, how Yugoslavia was, how dismantled, and how came to the settling of the war and intervention of NATO, administration from United Nations to some of the countries and so on. Now we came to one of the stages that actually out of that country it became 7 countries. And now we're trying to get our feet together to actually walk with the rest of civilization. Of course, coming from the war as vicious as it was during Yugoslavia time, special war in Bosnia, Croatia, in Kosovo, that was 80% of the buildings was ruined, and certainly all the people were displaced. It takes quite a bit of time to actually reset, to come back to the normalization, normal country, as to say, with all administration that needs, and certainly well-being of the people itself as well. So there is a bit of issues, although there's 25 years ago the war was over. I'll say 25 years, 26 years. And was worked quite a lot with different bodies to bring the countries together.
Yeah, that's I think this is a good point at which to bring in our team member, Red O'Laughlin. Red, if you could join us. I know you were there toward the end of the conflict, and maybe you could talk a little bit about your experiences there.
I was there in 98, 99. I retired. I was 31 years in the military. I got an invitation to Vietnam at the beginning on active duty. I spent 20 years in the reserves. Then I got recalled to active duty toward the end of my career. I was on active duty for about 6 years. I ended up in Stuttgart, Germany with UCOM, but my responsibility was for 89 countries in Europe and Africa, specifically for the reservists. And so if you had a reserve, whatever country you were in, whether it's in Africa or Europe, that fell under my purview for support. So we had a lot of Marines, Army, Air Force, Navy serving in Bosnia and in and around various places. And so whatever reserve issues were there, we had to resolve it. My particular group there in Stuttgart. And so I would travel down there periodically. I'd be down in Sarajevo. I'd be up in Tazar. I'd be in various places in support. But most of the time, I'd send my staff down. But there were times when you needed somebody. I was over there on a particular mission with a DoD rep and several other O6s, and we were helping Poland and Czech Republic and other places, help them with their reserves. How do they get their border guards to be more effective and more efficient within their own government? And so I was working with that, and then did some teaching down there and a few other things. But basically, I was down in Sarajevo and sometimes in the French sector, and then I'd be out in Tuzla in the American sector. So it depended on what was going on, where I was, and what I was needed for. But at that point in time, the shooting had stopped, but you could still see the bullet holes in the buildings there in Sarajevo. You go across the river to Republika Srpska, and it looked like Berlin after World War II. It's absolutely total devastation, kind of what Sabri was talking about with regard to Kosovo. And so there's just, a lot of things. But I noticed very, very quickly, even there toward the middle of '99, Sarajevo was making some miraculous recovery with regard to their rebuilding and things. So I guess when you have the wherewithal and the support to make things happen, things do happen.
Well, that actually, before we get back to Sabri, because I do want to talk about the future of the region, but the past of the region is Prelude, and you were there for part of that. So I'm going to ask you real quick, Red, while you were there in the middle of a conflict that's probably at certain times felt endless, while you were there, what is it about that region that you saw offered promise for a future society of cooperation and peace? Tell me about those people and what you saw in them.
Well, I looked at it from a cultural perspective. I think that any particular culture over there is very, very good. I think there's some, let's say, anytime you have, even in your own families, you have conflicts with other brothers and sisters. But you look at the nations themselves with regard to what economic promise they can give other nations outside of their world, whether that be, like, in some cases oil, in some cases diamonds, in some cases other things. But you have, I think, probably what one would consider a low cost, like Bangladesh or some other places. You have a civilization that can, because there's not a lot of economic development. You have a low cost, let's say, population, people who can provide services. So the training that comes in and says, let's do this. I want to make screen doors. I want to make whatever product that I want to make. I think that's where you have an advantage right now, because you have a very intelligent group of people living there. They're before the war, they were well educated. Why not take advantage of their ability and help them along the way? You give them new training, new skills, and with AI and everything nowadays, you don't need a whole bunch of people working out in the fields. You need a bunch of people who know how to help themselves and help the world. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities there when you have a well-educated foundation to use. That's what I think.
I think that's a great perspective on this. And Sabri, coming back to you, let's say that I were a billionaire in the United States and I've got the data myself and I'm thinking I want to hop on my plane, and fly out there. Who do I want to talk to? What kind of a deal do I want to make? And why is that attractive to me as an investor?
So nowadays, that that part of the world is divided into 7 countries. We have an issues between the unresolved conflicts, like between Kosovo and Serbia. Still, Kosovo had declared independence. Serbia does not recognize. So that is kind of, every time that there was talked about investment and potential kind of long-term solutions, the investors, like in your case that you took example, hesitating because they aren't unsure of in 10 years time how the that everything is going to evolve, whether it's going to go slip back into some kind of conflict or some kind of uncertainty that the geopolitics know how to shake that. You look at, for example, Montenegro. Montenegro, it's nearest the country to join European Union, but then they don't have capacity to facilitate loads of investments there because they're quite a small country. Then is Macedonia, that have its own progress in general, but they don't have yet. They haven't resolved yet between ethnicities, and certainly they have issues with Bulgaria for borders, so they haven't issue access into European Union, and we don't know how long it's going to go there to join it or not. And then kind of at times it can be quite a tricky politics in there, shifting from one side to another. Then you got Bosnia Herzegovina, which is a country that has been created by three nations: Bosnians, Croats, and Serbs. And Serbs always kind of causing issues by today want to divide, tomorrow want to dominate, day after want to go with Serbia, and so on. So they creating all this kind of uncertainty within Bosnia. So Serbia itself have its leadership. It's from Milosevic's time that had changed the system of democratic, but quick back into the hands of the former personnel that was serving Milosevic, and certainly they are built and grown, and they live with nationalism and kind of those kind of investments for that region. Most of the potential investors hesitating quite a lot because the risk is quite high. It could be that the return can be high as well, but more or less there will be sitting as a region at the moment. Of course, Croatia and Slovenia, it's a different case because they are already part of European Union, and in order to be there, they already have fulfilled all the standards that European Union expect from them, and the administration have moved on into the good direction, I'd say.
Well, I know that tourism is a big part of the economic proposition that the region offers. It's a beautiful part of the world, just across the Adriatic from Italy. So there's a lot to offer just right off the bat to a billionaire stepping off his plane or her plane and wanting to just enjoy the area. But I guess my question to you is, you mentioned risk, and I've been presenting this, and maybe I'm doing it incorrectly. I've been presenting this as a period of time when the shooting is stopped. Has the shooting stopped? Is this part of the world at peace now?
So the shooting had stopped. Like I said, 25 years ago, there was a few issues with northern Kosovo that was influenced mainly by Serbia to keep Kosovo as in functional state until recently. However, the risk of attacking Kosovo in any way there was quite low or nearly zero because it's KFOR, the security force that it's created by NATO. And it's responsible to make sure that that country does not slip back in conflict, and certainly they would not go as far as having a conflict as a let's say conflict between Serbia and Kosovo in this case. I think that is near zero, so it's not happening. And certainly with the new shifting that had happened recently with Belgrade kind of accepting Ukrainian president. And start kind of changing what it seems like changing the position of its of Serbia, instead of being pro-Russian, thinking of pro-Western based on those movements. I think that it's kind of going to faint away, and hopefully we're going to go back to some kind of normality in near future. That's a bit of sign very recently that happened.
Red, how does this square with your experiences in the area, and what do you see?
Why don't you ask the question a different way? Ask me the question a different way. I was listening to what Sabri was saying.
I'm sorry. No, to repeat.
I forgot the original question.
How does this, what you're hearing from Sabri, square with your experience in the area?
When you have personality conflicts with someone or a group with somebody, Christians, in Muslims, Protestants and Catholics in Ireland. It takes a long time for that, whatever caused the conflict to start with, to ameliorate, and eventually you can work with somebody even though you may disagree with them. 25 years, that's a generation. Whoever was actively involved at the end of the 90s is retired or no longer seriously involved. Now you have people who were never part of the war and they're now in their 20s. And I see that they don't have that experience in their bodies, their minds, where, okay, I could probably work with somebody else because I don't have that intensity of whatever for or against another nationality, group, religion, whatever you want to look at that one. So I think what Sabri's saying is correct. There were some problems, but those problems one by one are being addressed. When you start addressing the problems from an individual perspective to a collective, such as a country, whether it's Kosovo or Serbia or Montenegro, you're starting, I think, but some of those countries, Northern Macedonia, here's 30 things you have to do to get in the EU. Okay, we got 12 of them done. We got 15 of them done. But all of those things are there from an economic, banking, transportation, et cetera. But you have to have the government, the entity that's controlling, whether it's Kosovo or Serbia, uh, act like a major player. And you can't have, okay, let's say Greece and Serbia don't want Kosovo to be, they don't recognize the independence of Kosovo. What is the reason? I don't know. That's going to require some level of diplomatic skill that I don't understand or have. But I think Sabri is correct in what he said originally. Yeah, we are getting there. It's just very slow. I mentioned to you backstage. I was in Vietnam. 30 years after Vietnam, yeah, it was not the same thing. You didn't have near the same kinds of things, but you did have a major communist influence. But today, almost two generations since I left, or beginning of the second, that's a flourishing country. And people all over the world are coming over there just because it's inexpensive and a lot of things to see and do. So I think the Balkans are definitely going to see the same thing happen. I think it's just going to take a little bit longer because of the internal strife that will be overcome with time.
Okay, Sabri.
But to add to it, if that's okay,
Sure.
I think Serbia is the most powerful and biggest country in that region there. So the Serbia have to play a massive role to move towards becoming more democratic, because Serbia so far had not shown the signs of becoming democratic. It's quite nationalist and kind of dictatorship orientated. So the freedom of speech, freedom of loads of things is not happening there. As we speak in now, it's disabling the addresses of the Albanians who live in region Valley of Preševa, Bujanovce, and Medveja in such a way that if, for example, authority goes 2 or 3 times and knock on their door, nobody is there, then what they do is they register their documents. And what happened then, it's kind of for the people that they live within Serbia. It's quite hard to come to terms of maintaining to get the documents anymore. So it is, we're still dealing with a big country in Balkans that instead of progressing and moving forward, especially breaking down the nationalism and looking towards developing their country itself first and then the region, I think they're slipping backwards and taking advantage. Although they are in quite a strong position because they're playing some kind of game between East and West due to the war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. So if Serbia, I'm saying that if Serbia is switching into become more democratic and more open society and more accepting to the actual reality of the region, and not forgetting about that kind of ego to become most powerful by claiming the land and cleansing the people, I think we can see quite fast, like Red said, the people in the region that are highly intelligent and very easy to adjust to the system if they know the system works for them.
Now that we need to take a break. I mean, there are a couple of things I want to explore with both of you when we get back after the break, including the various communities of nations like the United Nations, like the European Union, like NATO, all of whom are partnerships potentially for these 7 new nations. Let's talk about what the hesitancy is in including them in those communities and what the benefits potentially are if they work out some of these details. We'll do that right after this break. We're going to take a break for a commercial. We'll be back in a few minutes.
What if many of the problems we associate with aging are not random? What if there are identifiable causes behind declining energy, chronic disease, and memory problems? We have been told that aging is simply something we must accept, that slowing down is normal, that growing older means growing weaker. But what if that's only part of the story? Why do some people remain active and engaged well into their later years? Why do others struggle with disease, fatigue, and declining health? What is happening beneath the surface? What processes drive aging? In Aging Sucks, researcher, educator, and author Red O'Laughlin explores what researchers have discovered about why we grow older. No medical degree required, no confusing jargon, just clear explanations of what researchers have discovered about the processes that influence aging. You cannot stop aging, but understanding its causes may help you make better decisions about your health, your future, and your quality of life. Because understanding comes before action. Action creates hope. Aging sucks. End the guesswork. There is hope.
And welcome back, everybody, to Lessons in History on USA Global TV and Radio. And Red, I know that commercial spoke to your heart. You've written a book on that subject. A little later on, when we're finished talking with Sabri and learning everything we need to learn about this new part of the world that's forming, maybe you can take a minute or two and explain the book to us, because I'm definitely a candidate for it. And but Sabri, I want to welcome you back to the program, because we're talking about what's becoming of Yugoslavia. And in that conversation, we have to include all the possible communities that the new nations can belong to. Have they all been fully recognized as nations now by the United Nations? Is there any question there?
So Kosovo haven't been recognized by United Nations yet, although it has been recognized by 120 countries. The veto is being held by Russia and China mostly. Certainly Serbia is the country that we have disputes, and they kind of failed to recognize Kosovo as an independent country, claiming as their own part. Although the ICJ, International Court of Justice, have kind of approved that the declaring of independence of Kosovo in 2008 in any way does not violate the international law, Serbia still failing to understand and take that as serious. So the rest of the country are recognized by United Nations: Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia Herzegovina, Croatia, Slovenia, of course, and Northern Macedonia.
So in the UN, the holdup could be the veto power of the Chinese and the Russians in that process. And I guess that's a political angle that has to be worked out. But what about the European Union? What about becoming full-fledged members of the EU?
So to become a member of EU, we need to fulfill quite lots of conditions. But the major one is normalization report to Serbia, which Serbia refused to do so. Now, what is here unfair about it, and the way we've been thrown on it? Serbia does not show interest as such as joining European Union as much as Kosovo does. Serbia played the role between East and West, while Kosovo is West and West only. So in that aspect, is kind of when you put, for example, the conditions on Kosovo and Serbia, is kind of in order for you to join this kind of body, you have to basically agree together. And Serbia does not show any interest to agree with that, despite the fact that all the negotiations has been pushed into the stage by stage. that it kind of seemed like they twist in Kosovo or put in pressure in Kosovo to accept something that it's beyond its power. Because again, when you have to deal with another country like Serbia that they don't show interest, but it's conditioned on them to join European Union, when you are actually working hard to do so, I think that's kind of an even condition that being put. The other thing is, of course, it's rule of law. Although we have been supported by United Nations, which I'm not sure whether they are very supportive. They are very good on settling as a beginning, the foundation of the country, but not necessarily state building. As such, we got EU-LEX and some of other organizations that they came to help, which show to be not very much of effective, again, to help on the rule of law. And then we got, there is quite lots of other organizations. USAID had helped a lot. USAID have been kind of invested quite lots on that direction, which I got to say, considering where Kosovo was 6-7 years ago to what is today, I think the progress is huge, massive. But there is still more to be done. And I think based on some estimation, we expect in earlier 35 to 40, 2035 to 40, to be ready to join European Union. And of course, as you know, there's lots of other things as human rights, which so far has been proven that it's conditioned that it's even it up. Environmentally friendly policies. Saying this, we got quite lots of laws that when the Kosovo kind of legislation has been created, quite a rule of laws has been copy pasted from different countries, from European countries. A very, very advanced one, but when it comes to put them into practice, sometimes they confronting each other. So for example, if from Norway was taken how to do the mines, from Germany or how to save the environment, then this law, although they are from maybe similar standards, they don't kind of work together with each other and creating quite lots of issues in implementing the general. So there is quite a bit of work to be done. And certainly, as you know, as I mentioned before, I mean, I've been focusing Kosovo a bit, but as I mentioned before, considering that during the Yugoslavian time, Kosovo and Albanians of Kosovo and region was suppressed and was treated like second-class citizens, never were given enough access to education and well-being and so on, because prosecution and intellectuals being nicked most of the time and so on. Apart from being quite badly damaged by vicious war, I think we need quite a couple of generations to be quite strong on running the country smoothly with all the pockets that administration need to run one country, I would say. You got similar problem with nationalism in Macedonia, and they kind of taken advantage of each other. And you got, for example, Bosnia and Herzegovina that actually have similar things. So instead of working together for better progress, they trying to nick each other's intellectual ability and dominating groups of gangs rather than a good politician, I'd say.
I want to get back to Red at some point to talk about his experience with all this, because he's a student of the area. And but before we do that, I do want to mention one other alliance, that is the NATO alliance, which also obviously factors in here. Do these countries want NATO membership? Have they? Where do they stay? I know this is a tripwire for Russia, and Russia never exactly left the area. Obviously, even though the Soviet Union fell, they still have influence in the area. How do you resolve all that?
So, again, going back to Serbia, showed no interest to join NATO. When Albania, Montenegro, Macedonia had joined already. Bosnia and Herzegovina, because of the complexity that is there, the Serbs, they have to agree with the rest of the population, then, like Bosnians and Croats, to come together to have a better progress, so they can kind of request to join the European Union. So Bosnia-Herzegovina is in question. Kosovo, we have a KFOR, the forces of NATO in Kosovo, and if you were asked any Kosovan today, what are their kind of willing to join European Union and NATO, probably would be 99.9%, specifically Albanians. I'm not sure that 4% Serbs what they think, but 99% would, 6-7% they would say yes to it. And I got to bring one more thing. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but if Kosovo was accepted by NATO tomorrow, then within days we will see normalization of the issues in Serbia and normalization of issues in Bosnia-Herzegovina. I think Kosovo is a key to actually, if it was permanently kind of guaranteed somehow international, similar to Switzerland until recently, the Balkans region would smoothly go into the right direction. I'm quite convinced on it.
That would make all the difference in your estimation. But how would the Russians feel about that? I mean, what kind of pushback is there to that?
But for Russia, anything that create peace in Balkans, for Russia, it's not good. Because Russia wants to have a conflict or ready conflict in Balkans. So at any time their interest being in question in Europe, they use that like a horse of Troy through Serbia to create some kind of uncertainty. So the Europeans will have to be kind of keep them busy with what's going on in the heart of Europe rather than facing Russia. So it will never be interest of Russia to have a peaceful Balkan.
Red, you speak Albanian, don't you?
Dita. Anyway, what Sabri was saying about Kosovo got me to thinking. In my specialty in the molecular level of the human body and what's going on, I'm thinking if the way to get into the EU, United Nations, whatever, was the same thing that somebody was developing Alzheimer's. There's a dozen different pathways that develops. Okay, if I use that same analogy, I want to have membership in the EU. Well, there's 30 things that have to happen. That's 30 different pathways. But that first pathway that gets to the brain that causes the problem is the one that's blamed. So let's say the Kosovo does become that country that is accepted. That automatically pushes everything out. So you have, I think, several pathways, whether it's transportation, human rights, recognition, lots and lots of things. These are all different pathways toward getting that end result. So if you get to that end result by one over another, such as Kosovo becoming that recognized independent and member of, then that forces other things to happen. Maybe Serbia doesn't want to recognize it, but the mere fact that everybody else in the world is, now they're in a different position and their strength is not near as good as it was. So I think I'm just applying it from a biological perspective, but I think the tentacles are very similar. That if Bosnia-Herzegovina is going down several of these pathways and they have these 12 checked off and they got another 5 planned for next year, eventually there's going to be so many things that are going to make it happen, even if they don't have that recognition from someone else, that it's going to happen because they're developing as a nation, they're developing as a world player, they're developing as a provider of services that others need. That's my kind of analogy to what I'm thinking about as I'm sitting here listening to the story.
That's, real quick, I know we're coming up on the end of the program, but we have a few minutes here. What Red is talking about, I'll try to rephrase it, is the kind of institutional discipline that it takes to follow a process without necessarily fully understanding it, to keep climbing a ladder to some destination you may not be able to see from the bottom of the ladder, but to stick with that on a day-to-day and year-to-year basis until you finally become established as a member of an international community that can be trusted and done business with. Sabri, from your point of view, do you see that happening now? Is that forming now?
Well, I see that happen. If I got to kind of point this again, if the Serbia become a bit more democratic and kind of avoid poking the neighbors constantly to keep the society everywhere uncertain, I think that would go in good direction. Serbia need to change the democratic system. How they're going to change that? How the Western world going to kind of put that pressure on them? It's going to be quite loads of thinking to do. When it comes to the society of Kosovo, Montenegro, Bosnia, Herzegovina stuff. Well, let me say something. You mentioned, like in the beginning of the show, you mentioned 1 billion if I have, what would I do in Kosovo? If we, for example, as a European Union, United States and Western world country, if you came together and kind of focus and say, okay, let's invest in Kosovo 2 billion or 3 billion or 5 billion only in university and get the best, get like 4 or 5 universities that are, and to equalize them within 10 years time with the rest of Europe, I think you already have created the society that actually will kind of fulfill all the terms that are required by European Union. Because what we need, apart from we need the will we have the will to go with the European Union. We have to know of how to do that professionally and kind of try to reduce the number of those kind of obstruction that sometimes we create ourselves, lack of knowledge and lack of advanced thinking.
Well, for those billionaires who are watching the program, in 10 minutes from now, you're going to be wheels up on your private jet. We're at the end of our program. So, Sabri, maybe you can tell us how those billionaires reach out to you and find you and talk to you about where they should be investing their money in this region.
Well, as always, Sabri Agimi, they can find me in LinkedIn, they can find me in Facebook, they can find me social media in general, Instagram, what's not. And certainly they can, anytime I'm ready to speak with them. I run the show, Voice of Diaspora in Albanian language. So, yeah, by all means, and I am well connected with the business network of Albanians around the world, including Kosovo and Albania. So we can kind of create a good connections to make sure that if there is interesting anybody to invest in there, they can always contact me. I can help them to find the right people to do that.
That's great. Thank you, Sabri. I appreciate that. And Red, I know you wrote a book about how aging is just wonderful.
It is actually.
Talk about it.
If you look at our bodies, every cell in our body, every second of every day is under attack. And so our body responds by repairing those attacks. So when your body has a capacity to repair damage that's done every day, you're generally pretty healthy. When your damage accumulates where your body can't repair it, you start aging rapidly and you start having a higher risk of disease. The things that cause your body to age rapidly and the things that cause your body to retain good repair capability are the same things. Your daily lifestyle choices, your diet, nutrition, your exercise, your stress management, the quality of your sleep. Those things, if you're sitting in a perfect world, I call it a Goldilocks zone, you're sitting here, everything's going to work out pretty well. You're supporting what needs to be and you're reducing maximum amount of damage. But if you're in the outer zones, now those things are actually causing problems. Your body's listening all the time. Every meal you eat, every time you walk, every time you get stressed, your body listens and takes that information and does something inside the body. Is that good or is it bad? Those are the things you make decisions about every single day. That's kind of it in a real quick synopsis.
Oh, that's great. Everybody should buy your book, me in particular. But go ahead, Sabri.
Am I allowed to just thank very much to Red Olaf for serving as in former Yugoslavia to save people's life and everywhere. On saying thanks to you that in every soldier the Western world have prepared and sent them willingly to go to help the society within Yugoslavia. Of course, Kosovo specifically, that we have so much support from Western world, United States, United Kingdom, France, Germany, and let me not mention, we as Albanians of Kosovo and region, we are so thankful, and certainly the nations who believe in freedom.
Thank you, sir.
That was wonderful. Well, and not just on behalf of Red, but on behalf of the thousands of people who served that cause over many years throughout Europe, not just in the United States. So
the heroes are heroes, and I got to say, I got loads of people who went and fought for Kosovo Liberation Army, for freedom of Kosovo, Albanians as well. They are like our diamond that we don't know how to thank them, but certainly you that kind of support in another nation just because of humanitarian reasons, I think that's amazing. I can't describe that, how wonderful it is.
Thank you both for joining us today. It was a wonderful conversation, and we'll continue it again next week. So, Sabri, I'll see you next week. And Red, thanks for your help today. Appreciate it.
Great to be in show.
Yeah, real pleasure. And my name is Cini, and I represent an organization called pro-fitforteams.com. Bruce Tuckman once wrote that the steps to creating a team involve forming, storming, norming. And then when you get through all that, you go to performance. Well, the whole point of Pro Fit for Teams is to take what might normally take weeks or months or even years, forming, storming, norming, and compress all that into a couple of hours. We can do that through a process that we've discovered that creates a role model that represents a team when it's doing its best work on its best day. Emulating the behavioral characteristics of that role model are what make a team. Bringing that role model to life is what we do with Pro-Fit for Teams. So I hope you'll visit the website. Maybe call me at 212-480-3730 if you'd like to start a conversation. In any event, thank you all for joining us today on USA Global TV and Radio for Lessons in History, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.